Couple minutes. Are you good to go? All right. I'll call to order the October 5th, 2021 Burkeville Town Council. I'll do a roll call to my right.
Justin Doyle.
Ruthann Moore.
James Trammell.
Andrew Greenwood.
Susie Cross.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We're going to go right to ordinances. Joe, ordinance 2021, front map amendment.
Good evening. The first ordinance tonight is ordinance 2021-14. This is a ordinance proposing to rezone approximately 40 acres from agricultural to rural residential with the intention to split off one 4-acre lot. This was given a favorable recommendation by the Planning Commission on September 20th and introduced to the council on September 28th.
Any comments or questions for Joe? Any motions?
I'll make a motion, we have to wait one more reading.
Sure.
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance 2021-14, amending zoning map from AG to RR.
I have a motion by Mr. Greenwood,
I'll second.
a second by Ms. Qualls. All in favor, raise your right hand, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And opposed? Okay. Thank you, Joe. Appreciate it. Okay, ordinance 2021-12, adopting the 2022 town budget. Adam, if you want. We've already gone through our motions on this. Go ahead. We've already had a look at everything else. If there's any questions for Adam, or if we've already questions, motions.
So one question I had, just to be clear, with the police station budget, we are basically almost there. With all the finagling we've had to do with the bond and everything, and what are we short?
120,000.
120. So, if we get there, we get the bids, and we're 120 short, we just have to make an appropriation after the adoption of the budget to take the funds from X to appropriate them, correct?
Yes, with the asterisk that we don't yet know the final bid amount.
Right.
So all of this is with, that reality. And you may not have to do an additional appropriation either, because there may be budget availability that's not in either this year still yet, or in the 2022 budget. So I wouldn't necessarily think that we would automatically have to do an additional appropriation next year. I know that there were some rebid aspects to components. Ideally that comes in favorably, and that helps to reconcile that gap a bit. In the short term, to be able to award those bids, we would just recommend that you kind of earmark some funds to be able to kind of close that gap on just like the project sources and uses, if you will. Make sure that there's the local funding in addition with the bond proceeds to be able to award the bids. And that'll allow us to then move forward with the budget and get farther down to an awarded state cost estimate, and then be able to provide better advice. Yeah.
Any other questions?
Make a motion to adopt ordinance 2021-12, adopting the 2022 town budget.
I have a motion by Mr. Lett, and a second by Ms. Moore. All in favor, raise your right hand.
Aye.
Say aye. None opposed? Thank you, Adam.
Thank you. Congrats
For all
on
the hard
that.
work.
Hey,
Yeah, thank
I'm
you,
excited.
Adam.
I think there's a lot of good outputs coming out, right? So tonight there will be an ordinance that you'll have signed. We have staff in the clerk treasurer's department teed up to upload that to Gateway tomorrow morning, signed, and we'll send an email confirmation. You'll be submitted to the state, and we'll look out for the 1782 notice here shortly, and we'll get to work on implementing some of those items to work through all this. Appreciate everyone's time throughout the budget process. Thank you.
for your help.
Thanks, guys.
Moving on.
Thank you.
Ordinance 2021, an ordinance adjusting the water rates. Go ahead.
Good evening, Scott Miller with Baker Tilly. With me tonight also is Mitchell Eschweiler. We're going to tag team this. Do you want me to make this presentation before you open the public hearing, or do you want to officially open the public hearing and then have me make it?
I'll go ahead, if you want to go ahead and give some information, I'd
Okay.
like to do that, and then I can open the public
Okay.
hearings, they have a little bit more info.
So on the water, the last rate change on the water, so I'll give you a kind of a brief summary of what's been proposed, and then Mitchell's put together some graphs that compare your rates to what kind of a trend of what would have happened since the last increase, and then also compares to other communities. So we'll bring that up on the screen for you. But big picture, the water utility has not had a change since 2019, so only a couple years on that one. But what we're looking to do here is fund about $28.3 million of projects that need to get done in the system. Plus, we also have $9 million of a refunding of outstanding debt. Those are going to get combined together into one bond issue to fund those projects and to refinance the outstanding debt. We're also then bringing the rates current to reflect your current operating costs, as well as build in another almost $1.5 million each year for other improvements that need to get done throughout the system over the next 5 to 6 years. So significant capital investment that folks will see over the next 5 to 6 years as these programs play out. We've split the increase up into two phases. Phase one is about a 14% increase that takes or increases the average residential bill about $3.67 or so up to about $29.61 per month. And then phase two is an additional 9% increase, which is another $2.70 or so to a rate of $32.27 for that average residential customer. Mitchell, if you want to talk about the slide. So I think we're going to have to start from the back of the PowerPoint because water will be at the end.
So what we did here, and you'll see this is for the water utility, we've also prepared similar schedules for the sewer and electric. This is looking at your last rate increase that you did back in 2019. And what we did is, what would your rate increase look like if you just did a 3% increase each year? So you can see the rate there for phase one and 22. In 2022 is very in line with what you'd expect to see in 23. And then into 23, bumping up a little bit. But as Scott had noted, we are funding a significant amount of capital improvements, both through the bond issue as well as through your rates and charges. So we would anticipate to see a little bit of a bump in rates there. So right in line there with what we'd anticipate for normal increases.
Excellent.
Is there also, you might not have this, Kevin might just supplement it, but the increase in terms of number of customers that we've seen over that period as well, and even a rough number just for the public so they can understand that it's not like this is flatline.
I don't have a good number on
Yeah,
that.
off the top of my head, I don't either. We can certainly work with Kevin and get you that number, but lots of growth.
A lot of growth, right?
Yeah.
This isn't a-
Yeah.
We're not, how many customers are we at roughly today, Kevin?
The water system is, I think, over 15,000.
Right, and in 2019, we were
I'm not sure.
right under 10.
Yeah, you've seen a lot of growth.
Right. And it's-
And that growth is what's keeping the rates where they're at. I mean, your rates for water are still incredibly low, especially after doing what we're about to do with all these improvements. I mean, it's pretty crazy as we see other rates throughout the state.
Right, that's what this shows here.
Yeah, so the graph in front of you is just showing you the green bar being your current rates. You can see they're on the very low end there with the $26. The first yellow one's going to be phase one. That'll take effect in 2022. Bumps you up a little bit on that graph, but again, still on the very low side. Then this second yellow graph there is going to be in 2023. So just one thing to keep in mind is all the other communities here, these are just their current rates. They could potentially increase rates over the next couple of years as well, and even bump ahead of you. A very favorable water rates,
This is Indianapolis, right?
correct? But yeah, with Citizens, you have a much larger customer base that they're spreading costs over, and that's why you'll see lower rates there.
Just a few more 13.
Yeah, a couple more.
What would phase two be?
It's January 1 of 2023.
And then no projected increase after 23.
Not currently at this time, no.
I think what this shows, I'm just, Kevin, I'd like you to just email your team. I mean, it's incredible if you really think about it. I mean, we had an audit of our water and sewer place, and they basically left and said, we don't need to audit you. You guys are doing things fine. And we've got a state-of-the-art water treatment plant out there, and we're on the left side of this graph. Even at the 2023 rates, it's something to be, I didn't do that. You can look at the council's file. What the council do, we did nothing. These guys are working their tails off and they're doing a great job. And I just think you guys have done a great job putting us in the position where we can fund even more state-of-the-art water to come into Bargersville as I-69's come through, and we're going to be ahead of the game instead of behind. So I was looking at this week and just, that's what hit me this week. You guys are doing a great job.
Thank you.
Any other questions on the council? Are you?
That's what.
Would it be easier to bring through each one that can do that information or?
Now, open it up.
I'm going to go ahead and if there's anybody here that would like to speak, I'm going to open up the public hearing. You've got 2 minutes to come up and if you have anything to say, so go ahead and open that up and just, if you get come up to the podium and give us your name and address. Anybody? Okay. Well, if there's nobody, I'll go ahead and close the public hearing. And we'll move forward.
I would move to adopt ordinance 2021-15, adjusting the water rates as presented.
I have a motion by Mr. Doyle,
I'll second.
the second by Mr. Greenwood. All in favor, raise your right hand. Aye. Aye. Pass, no opposed. Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to sewer rates.
Okay, on the sewer rates, last rate change there is from 2016. A little bit smaller size project. It's about just under $7.3 million. And this is going to address mains out at the new I-69 interchange, some force main and lift station upgrades at 2 Cent Road, some gravity sewer on State Road 135, and then a regional lift station at Bluff Creek. In addition to those bond-funded improvements, the rates again bring everything current to get your current operating costs, and then also build in about $613,000 or so a year for your ongoing capital plan over the next 5 or 6 years, because again, there are additional things that need to get done. On a rate perspective, phase one is 11.1%. That's about a $4.89 increase on an average residential customer, which takes that monthly bill to $48.75 per month. Phase 2 then is 12.4%, which is about a $6.06 increase, and moves the bill then to 54.81. Need me to repeat those? Got it? Dustin started writing late there. Okay.
So similar graph to what you just saw in the water, starting with sewer, the last time you increased rates were in 2011. 2011 was the last time rates were increased. And again, projecting out a 3% increase each year. So looking at that, we'd anticipate in 2022, the rates would be closer to that $60 mark. And then in 23, just under $63. The phase 1 actual, as you can see there in 2022, which will be effective January 1 of 2022, would be the $48.75. And then the phase 2 in 2023 would be the $54.81. So if you're looking at that as a 3% every year, the rate increases that we're looking at here are far less than what you'd anticipate that would take you out to in 22 and 23.
What do you think the rate of inflation has been since 2011?
Not quite 3%. You're usually looking a little above 2% is what we've seen. But then again, we're often speaking on affordability of rates, and we always see water and sewer trending a lot higher than inflation. We do comparison graphs for the state, and in our last update, in the 3-year period, we saw sewer rates go up about 6%, and then water a little over 9% on average. So we're typically seeing higher than inflation just for water and sewer rates.
Another way to put it is our first phase is getting us to a 2014 level, and our second phase is, if you go back, getting us to what, 2019?
Yeah. So really what this is showing you is that your rate increases over the year, you haven't had to increase them as much as you kind of anticipate you would. So again, that's due to growth and then, like you said, a good management of your system. And the next graph. So the next one, again, comparing your rate on the far left there in the green, the current rate of $43.86. And then you can see that's increasing in phase 1 and phase 2, getting you more in line with some of the other communities. And again, like I said on water, we don't necessarily know what these other communities are in the process of doing, so we could see the rates go up as well over the next couple of years.
I know some people know that. Just looking at the list. Without doubt.
Any other questions or comments? Okay. Open the public hearing. If there's anybody, I open the public hearing. If there's anybody that would like to speak to this, please come to the podium. Your name and address. There's no one. We'll go ahead and close the public hearing. Okay. Council, if there's any other comments or motions?
Move to approve ordinance 2021-16, adjusting the sewer rates as presented.
I have a motion with Mr. DeWitt,
Second.
second by Mr. Greenwood. All in favor, raise your right hand. Say aye. City Board. Aye. None opposed. Let's move on to electric rates, ordinance 2021-17.
Okay, same thing on electric. Last change, hopefully I get this one right, 2005. Actually, that change was your last change that was approved through the IURC, if I remember correctly, and you subsequently removed yourself. Similar scenario here. We've got a proposed bond issue that is about $2.8 million. That bond issue will fund a meter replacement program, some upgrades to the street lighting throughout town, and then also some line upgrades out in the system. It's also going to bring your operating cost to current and then build in about $425,000 annually for your capital improvement program. Phase one is a 11.5% increase. That's about $12.10 a month, and takes the bill to $117.54. And then phase two is a 6% increase. It's about a $7.09 per month increase, and takes the bill to $124.63. And then keep in mind that in addition, the normal quarterly tracking factor process that you've done and continue to do will continue to take place, where you buy all your power from IMPA. So as their costs change, you pass that cost on, either an increase or a decrease, onto your customers on a quarterly basis. So that process will continue as we go forward as well.
So on this graph here, the one change we did make here is we bumped down rate increase to 1.5%, or inflation factor. 3% was just getting a little too high for comparison's sake. And also, like Scott mentioned, you do have that tracking factor that helps you adjust rates throughout each year. Or looking at this, you can see your last true rate increase was in 2005. At that point, rates were about $105. Projecting that out with an inflation factor of 1.5%, you'd be looking at, can't read that exactly, I believe it's $137. Is that correct? In the far right.
$137.86.
In 2023. So if you're looking at phase one, $117.54, and then phase two in 2023, $124.63. So again, below what we project out with the assumed inflation factor there. On the next graph. So this is comparing other electric utilities. You can see there, the far left is your current rate, $105, and then moving to phase one, $117.54, and then phase two, $124.63.
Notice there's not a whole lot of variation in most of those rates. That's because most decent number of those are all IMPA customers, and so they're going to have, you're all going to have roughly the same
Rates.
the same rate. So there's not a whole lot of variability there.
Any questions? Comments? Okay. I'll go ahead and open the public. Did you have a question? Okay. If there's anybody, I'll open the public hearing. If there's anybody that'd like to come and speak, please come forward, say your name and your address. Well, if there's no one, I'll go ahead and close the public. Okay. Any comments or motions?
I guess I'll do all three. I'll move to approve ordinance 2021-17, adjusting the electric rates as proposed.
Have a motion by Mr. Doyle. A second by Mr. Greenwood. All in favor, raise your right hand and say aye. Aye. And opposed. Thank you very much. We appreciate all of our work. This information.
Yep. We'll move, like I said, we'll move on to the next step, and we'll get the financing going, and hopefully get some money to start those improvements.
Yes. Thank you very much. I don't,
I think we just have to approve.
yeah, we have to do,
The 18, 19, and 20.
Yeah.
Yeah. We've already had the public on it.
Yeah.
Right, we've had the public, we had that last meeting, correct?
I believe so. Yeah, they don't, the bond ordinances don't really require a public
Oh,
hearing.
that's
right,
right.
so we just
Okay.
need to,
Just move to approve ordinance 2021-18, authorizing the acquisition, construction, improvements, extension of the electric utility, and authorizing electric utility revenue bonds.
motion by Mr. Doyle, second by Mr. Green. All in favor, raise your right hand, say aye. Aye. None opposed? Want to keep going?
Move to approve ordinance 2021-19, ordinance authorizing the acquisition, construction, installation, and improvements to the sewage work system, authorizing those revenue bonds.
Motion by Mr. Doyle,
Second.
second by Mr. Greenwood. All in favor, raise your right hand, say aye. Aye. None opposed?
Move to approve ordinance 2021-20, ordinance authorizing the acquisition, construction, installation of the additions, extensions, and improvements to the waterworks, authorizing those revenue bonds.
Motion by Mr. Doyle, have a second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Green. All in favor, raise your right hand, say aye.
Aye.
And opposed? Thanks, sir. Okay, ordinance 2021-10, it is not going to be any motions tonight. Okay. No motion, so we will move on with that. Okay. Moving on to the minutes. Has everybody had a chance to look at the September 20th minutes? And do I have any motions or corrections?
Motion to approve the minutes from the September 20th, 2021.
I have a motion to approve by Mrs. Moore. For the second?
Second.
For the second, Mr. Wood. All in favor, raise your right hand, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And opposed? Okay.
Good evening. First item I have for your consideration tonight is the Kephart Park Phase 1 and the County Road 144 Saddle Club Road Trail Construction Administrative Services. Newport from Crossroads is here tonight to discuss that with you.
Good evening. Sorry, wasn't sure if I do my address or anyways, Trent Newport with Crossroad Engineers.
Social Security.
Yeah. Credit card number. So as Julie said, this proposal is for construction admin services on the package that we are bundling. So you have two different packages that are really separate and unique packages, which are the Phase 1 of Kephart Park and then the path project that's along 144 and Saddle Club. But Phase 1 of the park is really all flat work, site work. And so it made a lot of sense to try to bundle these to gain some bid efficiencies. And so obviously on the park work, you're hoping to get some work done this year if we can find some contractors that are interested in doing that. The path work is likely not going to start till spring. They could do some pipe work over the winter. We're actually just got this evening drainage board approval for the legal drain work up at the north end of the school property. So that's a big structure and some piping there. They could do that kind of stuff over the winter, but for the path work itself and paving, they're probably not going to do anything until the springtime. And so what we've done is put together something that would cover kind of a 20 hours per week for the duration of the two projects, which is, about a month in this year, or if that month slides till next year, and then a few months in the springtime. Our goal is to have everything, including all the path work, done. I think our completion date we set in the bid documents for the path was like June 15th, so well ahead of 4th of July. And I would say that you get a contractor that's aggressive, they could get good weather, they could get on it and get it done even before that. So this is to cover, just being a rep for the town for both of those projects, but more in a one-person part-time role. So we're there when we feel like we need to be there, and we're kind of on call. We know what the contractor is doing every day, but we're not there, every day. We're certainly not there all day, every day. And it's a budget. It's a not to exceed ceiling. So if we spend less than that, then that's all we bill.
And Julie, to clarify, we received a grant for the trail,
That is correct.
and a portion of that will go to fund this as well as
Potentially.
a non-reverting fund, right?
Yeah.
We will be tracking these two projects separately.
Yeah. And I will say, though, that the money you're going to spend here for the admin is really probably the local portion of it, because you're going to max out the grant with the construction of the path. Yeah.
This is all covered in your 22 budget, correct?
You said the 20th is some bid deadline. Is that
The bid
Bid deadline is the
For Kephart Phase 1.
what is it?
Phase one.
This is 20.
20th.
It's
Yeah.
20.
And so our hope is that we could get somebody under contract quickly and they might do some work yet this year.
That'd be great.
You know, like I said, they could do some on the path work, on the path job. They're certainly not going to finish it. But potentially they could go in and knock out some of the park work.
Where are we at with the acquisition?
I'm sorry,
Right-of-way acquisition?
with the right-of-way acquisition.
Yeah.
So we have the title work in. We're
Percentage complete. How about that?
probably 25%, I would say. We have already coordinated with the school and showed them they have a large portion of what we need. And they've already gave it a verbal blessing. We just have to go through the motions. Julie and I met this week with Mr. Nichols. So otherwise, we're just we're going to start meeting with those owners all that really leaves is, I think, 3 or 4 owners right north of Kephart Park. So, because Nichols owns all the way from the beginning to where we tie into the Morningside Path. Right. So probably 25% of the way done on those, but we're in the process of having the appraisals done on those.
Do you think you'll have that all wrapped up by the end of the year?
I'm hoping that we would have them all offers made and maybe even all secured by the end of the year. For the path, I mean, not that it's not critical, but it's not critical for what a contractor would want to do this year because the area that he would want to work in is the school, and we'll have that wrapped up before that. Actually, most of that work is within the legal drain, so it doesn't even matter, but.
Questions?
I move to approve Kephart Park Phase 1, not to exceed 50,000.
Motion by Mr. Lewis,
I'll second.
second by Mrs. Wolf. All in favor, raise your right hand.
Aye.
Aye, aye. None opposed.
Move to approve Kephart Park Phase 2, not to exceed $1,610.
Okay, I have a motion by Mr. Doyle. Second, Ms. Moore. All in favor, raise your right hand. Aye, aye. Aye. None opposed. Very good.
Thank you. And for the record, tonight I have the contract with Hagerman for signature by the council president.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yes.
If you don't mind, share the slides.
If you
Oh,
would
yeah.
please share them.
Sorry, I did.
Sorry.
Check with the presentation. If I'm looking at this weekend. That's my fault.
That's right. It means we're excited about it. That's good.
I'm ready. We've been waiting on Kephart for a while.
Thank you. So this, we just got approved. This is Kephart Park Phase 2. The word that we've been told for this year is activation. We want to get people in the park, using the park, playing, whatever that may be. Just as a reminder, on the far left is the master plan that was developed in 2016. In the center is Phase 1, which is the roadway work with the entrances, path along the east side, path along County Road 144, and the path along Saddle Club. So for Phase 2, with it being activation, we wanted to focus on the west side of the site, which contained some of your open space, your playground, some parking, some stormwater. Those actually working for me. There we go. So to come up with the budget, we looked at the master plan. We looked at the portion of the master plan that we'd like to build as far as the activation is concerned. Came up with about $2.5 million. We broke it down into your kind of major bullet point categories, which is what got us there. And we'd like to go a little bit more in depth. And we can push and pull these as we need to, especially with right now the playground. The play space is the big one.
we've been seeing, I think, to date across the board, you've seen about 25% increase in material costs. So we did put a little bit of a buffer in there. Hopefully that comes back down a little bit this spring. So as far as structures, in kind of the area that we had highlighted, we had 2 structures. You'll see a picture in the bottom left. It's kind of a standard structure that you use in typical parks. It's kind of what we were thinking. It's an off-the-shelf structure. It's not anything that's custom. Usually we can find styles that fit with the rest of the park and kind of keep the expense down on that. We have some walls built into the cost that kind of skirt the edge of the play spaces to help keep people in the space, kids in the space, but also give parents a place to sit. If you put benches, they don't always get used, but walls you can kind of spread out. People can lay down. You can kind of use them as you want. And we also had an entrance sign on the right. It's just like a family of signage that we've used before. Nothing that we'll probably use on this park, but it's a good example of developing kind of that family of signs that could kind of help create that sense. For the playground, we got almost $1 million in there. Like I said, I'm hoping we can get that down and still get a regional play structure that is both accessible and inclusive. Keyword, used to be accessible, which meant they would put in a ramp and that was about it. There's not a whole lot to do. But anymore, children in wheelchairs are not the only focus. You've also got other needs, especially with autism and sensory issues on the rise. You have a choice of surfacing. Typically, Gordon Place is kind of your best bet. It's the middle of the road. You can also use mulch that does open you up to a little bit more maintenance and liability. You can use synthetic turf, and there's tiles. We did have a budget in here for exercise equipment. That could be done at a later phase if you so choose. And then I've also heard pickleball courts being thrown around and some other things like that. So we would like input if there's other activities that you want in this phase, and we'll try and figure out how to get it done. So the original directive that we were given was that the drive and the parking lot should be gravel and not asphalted. Given that the entrance has shifted a little bit to the east, we would like to figure out how to get an area of parking installed and asphalted. I think that's going to be a better product. It's definitely going to hold up better, even if you don't put your surface coat on. It would be nice to get some asphalt in there. Then we also think that it's important to tie the trail that's on your east side of the park down with the trail that's on Kephart, kind of help create that loop in the park in the second phase. They'll also help to activate some of those play areas and whatever other sports courts or that sort of thing you come up with. And then the rest of the categories are categories that kind of you have to deal with as far as your grading, your mass earthwork, erosion control. Probably have some stormwater structures, depending on your guys' needs, electric, if you want the shelters to have lights, or if you want lighting on the entry sign. Landscape elements, we tried to keep it at a minimum, but still adequate, so people still want to be in the space and it's not just open shade. And then provide a few benches and trash receptacles. So that's kind of where we got to this number. Like I said, we can kind of push and pull as things.
That's the pickleball courts,
Pickleball courts?
maybe 4, tennis, and then a splash pad.
Okay, splash pads are expensive. But, all right, we'll see. We'll see how we can do them.
Did you say, I heard you say pickleball, and then I heard you say, did I hear you say tennis courts?
Yeah, you can do dual. You can do dual.
Pickle, tennis, and a splash pad.
Basically just paint the pickleball on the.
Yes.
Yeah. So I just didn't know, a lot of the places now with how popular the pickleball are, they're trying to build them separate so that they are just pickleball courts. But
Well, we can do that too.
yeah, it all
Just
depends
do
on
tennis
how the
courts and
space that
pickleball
you
courts.
have, and then if you want, if you don't have room for both, do you want to do a combo or do you want to just do pickleball courts? This might be-
Do you think there's room for
We'd have to look and just see how it fits on the site. We can definitely shoot for 4 pickleball courts and 2 tennis courts, and then see how it fits. And maybe some of them are shared and some of them are separated.
What's your feeling on bocce ball?
It's fun. I enjoy playing it.
Do you see them used?
It depends on the setting. In parks, I don't see them constantly used, but there's a lot of restaurants that have them out in their outdoor spaces, and they get used quite a bit there.
More do the outdoor ping pong in the outdoor pool, right? That's been pretty successful in Carmel. Not to say we want to do Carmel. That's, they figured out a way to do that in that plaza. You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
We may need to talk about restrooms.
Yeah, I say we had restrooms in, I think, the next phase, but we can look.
I don't know, we're just getting involved in the project. My question to you, is there a committee? If there's not a set committee, that might be good to have. Sounds like you have a lot of interest and maybe you would be willing to be on that. But I think it would be good because there's a lot of things to work through and try to manage what is really desired, because we can spend a lot of time going back and forth with a lot of different things.
We've had public input as well, so we can always resort back to that information that we have from them.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Maybe we'll try to get some of that stuff going forward here, going fast.
Thanks.
All right.
Thank you guys. Appreciate everyone. Okay. Joe, no add-ons?
I can probably come up with one, really.
Okay. Mr. Bertram?
I don't have anything.
Okay. Kevin? Darn quick.
Good evening. One item, this is, goes with our Morgan County or Western Sanitary Force Main. We're hoping to start on that in 30 days. And to add that into the SCADA system, we need to install an actual panel and power and the meter and things of that nature. So I'm here tonight to hire Frakes Engineering to provide those services for us for $26,838. $26,838. So this will monitor the flow as it goes into the Morgan County plant. Those numbers will be provided for billing purposes.
Do you have any questions?
I'll make a motion to approve the Frakes Engineering work for an amount not to exceed $26,838.
Motion by Mr. Greenwood. No second by Ms. Moore. All in favor, raise your right hand. Aye. And opposed?
Thank you. That's all I have.
I have one thing for you, Kevin. Now, they're doing the meter changeouts, right? I see the thing in
The electric meters, yes.
meters, and I do notice that, that they are kind of, when they did the meter change at my house, they just kind of knock on the door for 30 seconds, or knock on the door for a second, and all of a sudden, everything shut off. So I don't know if they're making sure that they're getting a hold of people, because that shuts off all your computers, everything. And
Right.
I didn't have any issues, but all of a sudden, the whole house shut off. I'm like, what the heck just happened?
You can check into that.
You could talk to them and say, hey, try it before you just shut it off.
Sure. Yep, we'll check into that.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay. The only update I have, we are doing trunk or treat on the 30th, 6 to 8. Is that correct? We always have a lot of kids and it's always successful. So hopefully we have good weather. We'll have another council meeting between that. We'll also mention that. That was the only.
Is Main Street gonna try and do it again, or?
They're talking to the band to see if they can reschedule.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, it's unfortunate.
We'll keep us posted.
That's all I have. Anybody else? Okay.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay. We're adjourned.